Hi, everybody. You should be able to hear us, I hope, but you will not be able to turn your mic off until the end when we have FAQ. But we will go ahead and get started.
Alrighty, welcome everyone. My name is Clark Wishmeyer. Before we get any further, though, I'd like to flip to this second slide here for anyone that would like to switch their audio to Spanish and allow for our interpreter, Virya, to introduce herself and give these instructions in Spanish.
Thank you very much for having us here and for practicing language justice. My name is Viria Sosa, and I am here with the Communal Language Co-op, and we are here to help create a space where everyone can participate and engage in the language of their heart or the language that they feel most comfortable in. We will use simultaneous interpretation to create this space. When I finish saying this in Spanish, we will turn on interpretation, and you will see a globe icon at the bottom of your screen that says interpretation. Please select your preferred language there. Hola, muy buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por tenernos aquí, por practicar la justicia del lenguaje. Mi nombre es Viria Sosa y estoy aquí con la Community Language Co-op y estamos aquí para ayudar a crear un espacio donde todos puedan participar e involucrarse en el idioma de su corazón o en el idioma en el que se sientan más cómodos. Usaremos la interpretación simultánea para crear este espacio. Cuando termine de decir esto, activaremos la interpretación y verá un icono de globo abajo en su pantalla que dice interpretación. Le pedimos que seleccione su idioma preferido ahí. Si está en su tablet o en su teléfono, le puede dar clic en los tres puntitos que dice más y ahí va a poder seleccionar su idioma preferido. Cualquier duda o pregunta, estamos en el chat. Please, if you have questions, you can type them on the chat. Thank you very much. Please go ahead and turn on interpretation. Muchas gracias. Vamos a comenzar con la interpretación.
Hey, interpretation is on.
Thank you so much. Again, welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your evening to join us for our first public event for the Cheesman Park Improvements Project. I'd like to first start by introducing the project team and who's going to be speaking to you tonight before turning it over to Councilman Hines to say a few words. Stephanie, if you want to begin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I am the project manager with Denver Parks and Rec. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Carrie?
Hey there, I'm Carrie Lilchgren, a landscape architect with Stream Landscape Architecture. We're consultants on this project.
Great. And my name is Clark Wishmeyer. I'm a landscape architect here at Stream. We're working with Denver Parks to design the improvements here in the park. I have many great summer memories of playing volleyball on the lawn and watching the sunset over Cheesman, so I'm really stoked to be a part of this team. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Hines and say how appreciative we are that you're able to join us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. And thank you to the already 52 people who have joined this conversation. Obviously, Cheesman Park is an important park in our city. I remember, I recognize some of these names who have already joined, and so this won't resonate with you, but I remember back in 2007, before my crash, I used to run from where I lived in Uptown to Cheesman Park, and there was a vibrant off-leash dog community there, and that was one of my first experiences with Cheesman Park. Obviously, I don't do that anymore. There's still some in the community that do continue to have their pets off leash. Really, this is an opportunity for us to think about exactly what Cheesman Park should be. And so I personally love Cheesman Park. I know, recognizing some of the names, some of you live right around Cheesman Park. It is definitely a regional park for many that draws from some of the densest neighborhoods in the city. They're all around Cheesman Park and people from far beyond. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation about how we improve our park. As an example, the conversion to some native grass or native vegetation. I think that's, I'm really looking forward to that conversation too, as we really get more and more concerned about access to water, which everyone needs, regardless of where you live, inside of the inverted L, outside the inverted L. And so there are a lot of great conversations that will happen. And I want to thank you to to those of you who have joined who can help us guide that process. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated, Councilman. So just wanted to go over next steps so everyone knows kind of the timeline of this project and how this is going to go. Today, we're at our first public event, which is super exciting. We'll have a second public event this summer. Once we do have a date for that, we will nail down, once we do nail down a date, we will send out a notification of when that will occur. Final design on this project is anticipated to be complete at the end of this year, with construction starting next year. So the whole point of today's meeting is to first introduce the project to you all and the main areas of improvement, which are the playground and the picnic and one walkway improvement on the east side. We want to get feedback from you all on how you want these spaces to look and to feel. And we're going to get that feedback by asking interactive poll questions throughout this presentation. Once we have all that feedback here today, and with the public survey feedback, we'll use that information to help us inform these concepts and ideas, and we'll bring that back to you at the second public meeting to get even more feedback then. So if you do have questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to write them in that chat, in the meeting chat, and one of our team members will try and get to you, back to you there. We do want to respect everyone's time this evening, so if there is time at the end, we will do that Q&A. And if there are a good number of questions that we just couldn't get to, that's about the project and what we have planned, we'll pull together an FAQ or frequently asked questions sheet to put on that project page. So Cheesman is one of Denver's oldest parks, I think we all know, and there's a lot of history to the site. The timeline here just shows an abbreviated version of that with some of the milestones and changes over the years, with some of those most important ones in terms of this project being in bold. The first one I want to draw your attention to is towards the middle of the screen, the 1992 playground installation at Cheesman. While there was an addition of an accessible swing in more recent years, the playground otherwise has not really been renovated, making it one of the oldest in Denver that hasn't been updated in that time. The next one I want to draw your attention to is the Cheesman Master Plan, just below that and to the right, that was created in 2008. Basically, this helped inform improvements in Cheesman over the recent years, like the fountain renovations, for example, many of these improvements being paid through the Better Denver Bond Program. That also leads us to today. That master plan helped inform that the picnic and playground were in need of some upgrades. So here's just a general improvements map. To orient you, Cheesman is that more saturated, more colorful part in the middle of your screen. Just to the right of that is the Denver Botanic Gardens. And then bottom right of your screen is Congress Park, with north being up in here. So that's at the top of your screen. If you look in the middle just of the park, just below and to the right, you'll see the Cheesman Pavilion to kind of orient you in the park. And then just to the east of that is where there's going to be that walk replacement, kind of situated in between the pavilion and the Botanic Gardens, which we'll touch on here in just a minute. And then if you go to the west side of the park on the left, kind of aligned with 11th Avenue and that entry point there is where the picnic and playground improvements are happening. Before we dive into some of the proposed work here, though, I do want to turn it over to Jessica with Denver Parks and Rec to talk a little bit more about what the councilman was speaking to on some of those turf to native conversions.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Jessica Anderson, the Urban Ecology Supervisor with Denver Parks and Recreation. In a lot of our projects like this one at Cheesman, we were looking for opportunities to also do landscape transformations. So if you haven't heard the term landscape transformation, what we mean is removing some of that water-thirsty bluegrass turf that isn't used for recreational purposes and replacing it with our native shortgrass prairie, those landscapes that would have been in Colorado before Denver was a city. before we developed our park system. So we're looking for those opportunities with projects across the city in all of our different neighborhoods to remove some of that turf grass and replace it with that shortgrass prairie. So this slide shows some of those images of what that could look like. And these are all images from other park spaces across the city. So with that, water conservation is kind of the biggest benefit. We all know that water is scarce in the West, but bringing this nature back into the city has so many other benefits, including creating habitat for our pollinators or wildlife in the city, and then reducing some of our mowing and maintenance inputs. So reducing the amount of times this gets mowed, those greenhouse gases associated with mowing, some of that fertilizer. Our native plants don't need as much fertilizer to stay green as turf grass does. So there's a lot of compounding benefits that we're looking for those opportunities. At this point in the project, we don't yet have areas identified. So we will be looking at a lot of different data layers. So looking at what areas of the park are heavily used, are those recreational active areas, and then looking for our tree canopy. So in certain areas, native landscapes and trees don't necessarily have the same requirements. So looking at balancing some of both of those objectives of where we need to maintain tree canopy, and then where we can also look for those water conservation opportunities. And then also hearing your feedback. So this is just that first touch point with letting you all know we're looking for these opportunities. We'd love your feedback on where you think this might work in your park, in Cheesman Park, and really listening to that feedback. So we'll have more information at the next pop-up community meeting, but I wanted to make sure you were all aware that this is something we're looking into. And if you haven't seen the Denver Parks It's in Denver's Nature campaign, I invite you to check out our website and our blog. We have a really fun podcast as well. So I'll drop a link to that in the chat. It's denvergov/nature. And you can hear more about these initiatives across the city. So thank you very much for your time. I'll be here if there's any question to answer later in the meeting.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jessica. I'm going to hop back up on one slide because we're going to move into the walk and picnic and playground improvements. Like Jessica said, during that second event, that's when we're going to be looking for feedback for this, but really glad we got to introduce it to you all tonight. So just to orient you before we hop to this next existing site photo, we're looking at this walk replacement on this east side. It is one of the last remaining asphalt walks in the park. And as you can see from this photo, the edges are starting to deteriorate, and with ever-growing cracks and stuff, it's no longer accessible. So the goal here would be replacing it with a concrete sidewalk and just bringing it up to accessibility standards, while still maintaining generally the exact same alignment that you see out there today. Moving over to the west side. So the existing playground and picnic currently reside within that gray dash box, with the picnic being towards the top of that box and the playground being towards the bottom. Zooming in just a little bit, that purple represents the picnic area, the orange represents the playground, and then for those of you familiar with that area, you'll know that big sunken area. That gray dash line on this sheet represents kind of the extent of that. Cheesman is one of our regional parks here, and so Denver Parks and Recreation does have standards for what the minimums have to be to make a picnic site for a regional park or a playground for a regional park. And so right now, neither the picnic or playground does meet that regional standard. And between that and the master plan identifying that as in need of upgrades, that's really why this project is focused in on these areas. And this brings us to our first polling question. So just to give you a little orientation, the playground at Cheesman is typically made up of a main play structure that you see here, geared more towards younger kids, some smaller play equipment around it, and then 2 sets of swings, one on the north and south. We've already started hearing feedback that those that use this playground know it's a well-loved playground. And so what this polling question is what do you like about this playground? So the polling question you should see popping up right now reads as, what do you like about this playground at Cheesman Park? And so this is multiple choice, and you can choose up to 3 options here. And I'll just go through as you all are selecting some of these options. First, you have swings, slide, tree canopy, climbing feature, quiet area, views, proximity to other amenities like the pavilion, walking loop around the park. And then if you have something else in mind that you want to throw in here, please select that other and then go ahead and write that answer in the meeting chat. Give you all a few seconds just to work through that question. And Laura, I'm correct that everyone can see results right now?
No, when I close it, you'll be able to see the results.
Okay.
Most have participated, so get your last, if you haven't yet, hit enter, and I'm going to close the poll in 5 seconds. Okay. And now you should be seeing the results. Do you see them, Clark?
I do, yes. Looks like the large front runner is the tree canopy. Great area for all the shade and just cooling off during summer. I believe second place comes in swings, and third walking loop, with everything else kind of trailing off there. Very cool. Okay, so yeah, like I said, this data, along with everything else we asked you during the latter parts, we're going to take back this feedback to inform what we bring to you all for that second public meeting. All right, moving on, just to orient you about what the existing picnic looks like. This is just to the north of that playground area and pretty much just consists of 4 picnic tables right now. And this is the one reserve site that's available in all of Cheesman. Just to reorient you a little bit, we're zooming in on the same area, but instead of looking at existing conditions, we're now going to move on to look at some proposed stuff. So here you see a preliminary concept layout. And really what that means is just trying to show you all how these spaces can start to relate to one another. So we're not really getting into super hard specifics on anything. For example, this is showing how the picnic area and the play area can relate to the 11th Avenue entry, or can relate to the lawn on the east, or even how the picnic and playground relate to each other. So in the following slides, we're going to ask polling questions about some of what you're seeing here to better understand what you all want this concept to look like. So starting from the top, you see the large purple circle labeled picnic area. So that would be more of a main picnic area that has more amenities and more tables surrounding it for medium to larger groups. If you look just to the right, the smaller purple circle, that's called dispersed picnic, which is more for smaller groups. Think like 1 or 2 picnic tables by itself. As you look just below that to the redder area, that's the entry node. We see that as an opportunity area that could help provide a sense of arrival from 11th Avenue or create more direct routes to the picnic or play areas. Looking just to the right or to the east is the activity node. And that could potentially be an opportunity for more active use, like maybe a unique play feature, or it could be a more passive one, like small overlook. And both of those areas we're about to ask you questions on to say, hey, do you even want anything here? Do you want that sense of arrival? And if so, what do you want that to look like? And then finally, as you move to the lower area, the play areas, the blue and yellow circles represent different play areas, with that upper left being for older kids, the lower left blue circle representing swings, the bottom right circle showing a play area for the smaller kids, and then that yellow circle representing exploratory play, which we'll show you some examples here in just a minute. So we're going to hone in on the entry node here real quick for this next polling question. So that polling question is, What kind of entry feature, if any, would you like to see in the park at 11th Avenue? So this is another multiple choice one, but this time it is choosing your favorite, so only one. So just to talk through this a little bit, on the bottom left, you see the picture of the view from 11th Avenue into the park, just to understand what that view looks like. And then to the right, you start to see some options that are maybe more prominent and some options that are a little bit maybe more subtle, like the planting. So those options in the actual polling question read as A, public art, which you see in the upper right, B, planting bed, which is that middle right image, C, flexible seating, lower right image. And then if you have another idea, that is for D, other, where you can write your answers in that meeting chat. And then E, if you don't think there should really be an entry feature, maybe this isn't the right spot for it, that's where you can put in no entry feature or none. Give you all a minute to fill this in.
Okay, it slowed down a lot, but we haven't heard from everyone, so we'll give it 5 more seconds. Okay. Clark, do you see the results?
I do, yes. Okay, looks like planting bed is our forerunner with 39%. Next would be public art, closely trailing behind at 33%. Number 3 would be C, flexible seating at 17%. And then other and none both have 6%. So it looks like planting bed is so far the forerunner. Awesome, thank you guys. All right, moving on to our next polling question. We're going to move just to the right to that activity node. So basically, this activity node is sitting, if you look to the left side on the images, right at that edge of the sunken area. You can see the topography on the left. And so that sunken area is about 6 feet deep, and it has gently rolling turf slopes on either end with some asphalt paths kind of throughout right now. And we feel this could be a great spot to either interact with something more active like the play area, or something more passive like an overlook just to enjoy the views, or something more experiential. So just to orient you all with where we're coming from with this question. And that leads us to our next polling question of what kind of activity would you like to see happen at this activity node? This is another multiple choice, and it's choosing your favorite. So choosing only one option with A, play bridge, that upper right image, B, overlook, the middle right image, C, experiential walk, that bottom right image, D, other. If you have another idea, please put that in that meeting chat. And if you don't think this spot's right for an activity node, or maybe just not much programming at all, that would be E, none.
I'm going to let a few more people respond. They're coming in. And I just saw in the chat, if your survey disappeared, feel free to just type your response in the chat if you don't mind. Otherwise, we also will be pushing a survey out after. Okay, I'm ending the poll.
This one looks a lot closer than the rest of them. Looks like B, overlook, has 29%. C, experiential walk, has 26%. And then A, play bridge, and E, none, both have 21%. With D, other, just being 3%. All right, very cool. All right, so this next one is something that wasn't really covered in that concept diagram super easily. But we think just given all the awesome amenities spread out around Cheesman, it's worth asking, do you want this area to be more connected to these other areas? So this survey question gets at, do you want to see some connection and what type of connection? So that polling question is, what kind of connection, if any, would you like to see from the playground picnic area to the east side of the park, meaning like the lawn, pavilion, other elements like that? This is going to be choose your favorite. So multiple choice, just choose one. And those two types of connection are A, visual connection. That means through sight lines like this upper right photo. B, physical connection, such as walkways to get places a little bit quicker or more direct. C, other. If you have an idea for a different type of connection, please write that answer in the meeting chat. And D, if you don't want to see any increase in connection, that'd be the choice to go.
I am going to give this 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm ending the poll.
All righty. Looks like no increase in connection. Option D, or answer D, had 36%. Answer B, physical connection, walkways, had 33%. A, visual connection through sight lines, had 31%. And C, other, had 0%. So pretty well tied, but no increase in connection is the front runner. All righty. Just to circle back on what we were talking about earlier with exploratory play, just to explain that a little bit more, it might not be as obvious. With more traditional toddler play areas and 5 to 12 play areas, that's where you see equipment like you see in that existing Cheesman, where it's kind of one cohesive piece that works as a structure. Exploratory play, though, in the terms of what we're using it in, just means it's a lot more looser. It's not tied to one big structure. It could be a lot of things. It could be using boulders for that experiential walk type of feel in a play environment. It could be exploring, like in that bottom left area, getting to just go through grasses and features. It could be using that slope of the sunken area as some sort of climbing feature or slopes. Or in the upper right, maybe more of a sensory experience to where you have like a sensory dome or things you can touch and feel. So it's kind of those alternative types of play. And with that, we're going to get into some more play and picnic focused question, which I will turn over to Carrie Liljegren. And Carrie, you were a little muffled, so maybe speak up a little bit for these next few.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, I will speak as clearly as possible. Great, so thanks, Clark. You covered a lot of the site-specific questions and we're getting a lot of great feedback. Thank you all. Just kind of wanted to dive in just a little bit more on some details related to both the playground and the picnic. So first, what you're seeing here is the arrangement, if you will, of how playgrounds are laid out. You might not give it much thought, but a lot of playgrounds are what you see on the left, a central play area. Kids are all centralized and parents tend to hang out around the perimeter. It's probably one of the most common ways that playgrounds are designed. And on the right is a bit more freeform and allows what we call dispersed play areas. So they're smaller play zones, and they are usually linked by some gathering spaces and some paths. But it just allows for movement. The kids can move between the spaces as opposed to being in one central space. Naturally, the central play area tends to be a large area, and whereas the dispersed play areas are smaller, but again, they're usually dispersed around the central feature. So this is a polling question. We would welcome your feedback. This is helpful for us in proceeding really to the next step, which is developing concepts for our site. So A is one central play area, B is the smaller dispersed play areas, and C is no opinion.
Okay, results are still coming in. I'll give it a little longer. Okay, I'm going to close it in 5 seconds. Okay. Harry, do you see the results?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so people favor the first one, which is one central play area. That's got 53%, followed by the smaller dispersed play area. That's 35%, and 13% have no opinion. Okay. Great, we'll move on. This is getting into the play actions, if you will, how not just children, but people of all ages use a play space. And because this is a regional park, this is going to be a great playground. Many of these will be incorporated into the design probably, but it does help us to get your input. It helps us with the priorities of how the playground will get designed moving forward. So we all know these, right? But A is climbing, which can be many different features. Swinging, there's so many different swinging types now. Sliding, of course, spinning, balancing, jumping, and then these last two really kind of lend themselves to the exploratory play that Clark was just describing. So imagining and exploring and kind of that sense of adventure. Thank you for voting here.
I'm going to give them a little longer since they have to pick 3.
Yeah.
Or they can pick 3. Okay, it's slowing down. Get your last answers in. Okay, gonna give it 5 more seconds. Okay.
Okay. So so we're seeing, this is not a surprise, swinging is number 1, that's often the case, followed by exploring, which is great, and then climbing. And then we get to sliding. I'm sorry, sliding and then climbing, and balancing, spinning, imagining, and then jumping. So again, it won't be either or. There will be a lot of these play actions, if you will, worked into the features as we move forward. And then this is one more question on play, just understanding the character of the play equipment itself. That has to do with its aesthetics and the materials that are used. And so we have here a few of the common styles, if you will, of play. The first one being traditional. It's really not too dissimilar from what's out there on site now. It's a lot of the standard play elements, slides, bridges, monkey bars, a lot of that. Of course, traditional can be new and updated like you're seeing here. So colors and materials can be new and updated, but again, still has that traditional form that we all recognize. B is what we call nature-based. So this will be really focusing on, kids connecting to nature and that natural feel that comes through with materials such as this GFRC climbing boulder, very large scale boulder, kids love. And C is really kind of iconic, whimsical, large scale features such as these large birds. You'll see some other parks in Denver have these as well. And it really does spark the imagination. So that's a very specific style of play. And then modern focuses on, more urban look like stainless steel slides and large eye-catching features like big towers. And then we are also including blended because it really is kind of a mix or compromise of all of these into one. It's hard to get all the good aspects of all of them, but there is a way to kind of look at something that would be more blended. So again, this is really helpful feedback. And go ahead and complete your polling if you're not done.
Okay, I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. Okay, Carrie, you should be able to see the results.
Okay. I see that number 1 is nature-based, that's 68%, followed pretty closely by blended, 63. And then at 50%, you have the unique kind of iconic large-scale animal type of play, followed by traditional, and then modern is the lowest ranking choice at 11%, and then everyone had an opinion about this. No opinion had 0%. Okay. So that was play, thank you. And just a couple more questions, and this is more related to picnic area, how you want the picnic area to look and function. This is just a reminder of what's out there now for the picnic area that we will be upgrading. So in terms of picnic, there are many different types, but in general, we are really trying to solicit from you, really how you would like the picnic area to be used. Do you favor, one large kind of dedicated space that is for larger groups? Is that something you really look for in a park? Or are you a bit more drawn to smaller picnic areas that may not have a shelter, but are kind of dispersed around the activity zone, but are a little bit more intimate in size and scale? It might not be either or, we might be having both, but again, these help us prioritize. The poll should be up now, and thank you. So A is the large picnic area, B, of course, is the small dispersed. C is no opinion, and then if you have other answers, you can write them in the chat.
Okay, I'll give it 5 more seconds. Okay, you should see the results. This one's a pretty clear one.
Yeah, it's quite a landslide. You guys like the smaller picnic areas, which is great. That means you can, picnic with smaller groups and not have to, feel like you need this huge group to dominate, larger pavilion space. Of course, those do have their function as well. So we'll be looking at both, but good to know that the smaller is preferred. Okay. And then our last polling question for you, really kind of, again, just like the play, we kind of want to get at the character or the materials or aesthetics of these things. And, you know, Cheesman's a very special place, and it does not have a shelter other than the pavilion. The pavilion's pretty iconic. So we really want to understand from you you know, what you feel this structure should look like if we have one in the park. So traditional can, you know, it can have a, you know, contemporary look to it, but in general, traditional means, you know, gable roof or hip roof, you know, standard shelter shape. And yeah, simple forms and, you know, probably neutral materials. In this case, there's wood on the ceiling there. That is an option we might explore, but that's traditional. I think we all know that one. Modern really has, you know, in this case, I believe the roof there has some glass elements. It has more steel. It might have more color to it. So that's modern. C is one that we definitely feel, you know, could work well in Cheesman because it would be, you know, responding to and complementary to the pavilion, which will be within our view of the picnic area. So there could be a great connection there, we feel. And then lastly, unshaded, you know, we have a great tree canopy, as you all have noted in the polling, that you like that. And there could be large areas of picnic that are just within the trees and utilizing the tree canopy. So again, the polling on this is a traditional, B modern, C unique, kind of responding to the history of the site. And then D is, you know, unshaded picnic spots.
Okay, I'll give it 5 seconds. Okay, results are up.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so it looks like pretty close between the unique, iconic, historic type of structure and just open, unshaded, well, shaded by trees, but not by structure. Those seem to have tied, and then traditional and modern being the least popular. So this is really valuable information, and thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back over to Clark.
Awesome. Well, that was the end of kind of the more formal polling questions. I've been seeing messages come into the chat throughout this, so thank you for getting those out there. If you have any other questions about the improvements we have planned here at the play and picnic area, please feel free to put that in the chat right now. We're going to try and look at those real quick and try and find some of the, I guess, biggest questions you all have and see if we can give you some answers here with what time we have left.
Clark, looking at some of the, this is Nora, looking at some of the questions in the chat. One of the first ones is, how much money is earmarked for this project?
Good question. Stephanie, do you want to tackle this one?
Hi, so our budget for this project that includes the playground, picnic area, and those east walks are funded by Elevate Bond and our general fund. We have just over $2 million for design and construction for this project.
Thanks, Stephanie. We actually had a clarifying question. What is a play bridge?
A good question. Let's see if I can hop back up here a few slides. So it can be definitely a few different things. I think in this case, seeing as we have some topography to work with, it could be an at-grade thing that continues out that allows for more accessible use to maybe like a slide or a structure, something like that. I think it could just connect two spaces. I think there's a lot of flexibility with that. Carrie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll add that there is a sunken area, but within that sunken area is a little mound, an island. I don't know if you can zoom in on that, but it does, the topography of that little sunken area could lend itself to a high point within that pond. So that's what we thought could be an activity node that might be activated in these ways we're showing. So
We have, thanks, Carrie and Clark. We have a question that just came in about accessible design for the playground, and how that might be incorporated into a playground design.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely considering inclusive design here to make sure we're taking into account all ability levels, whether that's, you know, more of a physical level of can they climb this, can they get up here, and also sensory levels and different stimulations, such as, you know, some kids are going to want the rowdy right up here, and some kids do need a little bit more quieter stimulation or sensory stimulation. So really trying to balance that between different play activities and making sure that whatever we provide for one activity level or ability level is still being provided somewhere else for a different ability level. So really trying to make it as create that equality of there's something for everyone that's similar enough to where everyone's getting a similar experience. Carrie, anything to?
Yeah, I would just say the principles of universal play design are always in place when we're designing. This hasn't been designated as an officially universal playground. But again, it's kind of fundamental to how we design. We're always looking how it can be designed in the most inclusive way.
Thanks, Carrie and Clark. We are getting a number of questions about the eternal question when it comes to parks. What is the plan for bathrooms? And then part 2 of that question is trash cans. What are the plans for trash cans? They're currently dumpsters.
I can answer that question. Currently, we will be working with our parks operations team to look at this around the playground and around the picnic site. Obviously, if we're creating more amenities, we will try and accommodate the basic needs of that. But right now, we don't have plans yet to address all of those concerns just yet, as we're still evaluating a lot of how we can fit into our budget with what our scope of work currently.
Thanks, Stephanie. We do have a question about the picnic areas and whether they'll include grills.
Stephanie, chime in here if I'm off here, but I believe that the rating for Cheesman would designate at least one grill for the area that would be permitted.
Yeah, it would really depend on the layout of the picnic site and if it makes sense to have a grill in the area. But right now, this is a regional park, and so we would like to create as many amenities as we can for this park.
Stephanie, you mentioned regional park. Can you spend a little time defining regional park? There are a number of questions in the chat regarding how Cheesman is classified as a regional park and what that means.
Yeah, so Denver Parks and Rec, we have over 200 parks in our system. And so we categorize it based on size, how much amenities we have. Typically that goes with our budgets as well. So Cheesman Park is considered a regional park. So that's why we would like to have a regional size playground that matches the characteristics of Cheesman. Lots of parks that are considered regional in Denver include Washington Park, City Park, Sloan's Lake. Those are some of our bigger parks that some of you might be familiar with and that are in this area. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Stephanie. We do have a question about the ground cover in the playground area. It was sand, now it's wood chips. What's the current thinking with regards to the ground at the playground?
Yeah, so right now there are three typical options that meet play safety surfacing guidelines. That is also works with Denver Parks and Rec operations. That would be the wood chips. The second option would be artificial turf, and that would have padding underneath it to make it a play safety surface. And then the rubber surface, it's called poured in place rubber, but it's that very squishy surface that you see that usually has color to it of some kind. So it would most likely be a mix of those based on the desires and the feedback we get.
We do have a follow-up question regarding sand. Why not sand?
Sand may be considered as well. We just don't use it in large areas.
I can answer that. We typically haven't been putting a lot of sand in our playgrounds. One, they're not accessible, and two, it is a maintenance concern for us. Sometimes it's unsafe, or sometimes we find a lot of things in it that is hard to see when you're walking on it. So we've typically been straying away from putting sand in our playgrounds, at least in most of our parks now.
Thanks, Stephanie. Does this project include the possibility of interpretive signage?
Currently it doesn't. And, if that's something that we're hearing a lot of feedback and needs and wants, we can consider this as part of the playground feature, but currently it does not. I want to respect everyone's time. If you have additional questions, please add it to the chat, and our team will reach out to you. Do you want to flip? Do we have any more slides on this, Clark, to show? Maybe.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to one more time revisit this so it's fresh in everyone's mind. Second public event will happen this summer. We'll be sending out a notification on that once we have that date nailed down. Final design is anticipated completed at the end of this year, with construction starting next year. With that, if you think of something after the meeting chat's already closed here this evening or tomorrow or whenever, please feel free to reach out to this email here, and that will get to the project team. I think that's all we had for our formal meeting. Stephanie, do you want to close out with any closing words or?
Thank you everyone for joining. This is a really exciting project. Like Clark said at the beginning, we haven't had a new playground here since 1992. So this is a really big deal for us, and we'll take everyone's feedback. Please take our survey online. It's open till May 11th. And our second engagement will be in the park talking to people. So I hope you can make it out to one of our pop-up events. We'll be sharing that via email. If you aren't already on the list, please include your email in the chat and we'll make sure you know what our next steps are. This isn't the last time you'll be hearing from us. So please keep an eye out sometime in June. And we're excited to share our progress after we hear from all of you on this first round of engagement. Thank you and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. I'm going to end the meeting, and thank you to our interpreter tonight.
Thank you.